Let's get to the news.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North South America, all the ships and clippers at sea. Let's go to press.
First up in game news is, it's an interesting story. Origins. Origins is one of the big two gaming conventions, big three gaming conventions in the United States, right? There's Gen Con, which is the largest, Origin, which is sort of the baby brother of Gen Con, and then BGG Con is also way up there these days. Origins is more like Gen Con in that it has role-playing games, it has LARPs, it has everything that you want is there. They canceled their convention, but then they were planning an online convention, and something very interesting happened. People started dropping out. Presenters, people that were due to be on panels and all that sort of stuff, they started getting out in mass, and it was because Origins never put out a Black Lives Matter statement of any kind. They didn't address what was going on in the world and the nation, whereas Gen Con, like all of the other conventions, made at least some statement as to how they respected the diversity in their hobby, and they wanted to do things to encourage that, and to just say a simple 3-word statement, Black Lives Matter, and they didn't do that. So a lot of people started dropping out, and then they announced that they were going to cancel the event. And GAMA, which is the trade organization that runs the thing, or sort of in charge of the thing, put out a rather lengthy statement about how, you know what, we should have done this earlier. It was bureaucracy. It wasn't, intentional negligence. But we support Black Lives Matter and blah, 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 blah. And we understand. We hear you. We're canceling the event. Then Eric Lang, who, by the way, is killing it. If you have not subscribed to Eric Lang, who is the creator of Blood Rage and many other great games, if you're not subscribed to his Twitter feed, you should, because he has been amazing in his insights into this time and place, especially from a person in the board game hobby, a black man, and a person who is feeling this in a certain way. He had a post about Minneapolis that was eye-opening. He was describing the 3 encounters he had with the police in Minneapolis, because one of the game companies that he would work for was in Minneapolis, so he had to go there frequently. And he described in chilling and really precise detail how those encounters went, and really gave a lot of people a window into his daily life, or what happens from time to time in this country. He also put out a post about GAMA's statement about the cancellation of Origins, where he called them out and said, paradoxically, what you've done is you have put yourself at the head of the story instead of the people of color who were the ones who resigned from Origins in the first place, and you're essentially silencing them by reporting the story in such a way that you said, we had some people drop out, and so we've decided to cancel it because blah, 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 blah. We have decided that we need to make a statement about Black Lives Matter. And it was a really, really great post. And at the end of it, he says something on the order of, this might make you uncomfortable. I kind of hope it does, because we need to notice the small things that we do that contribute to the problem, and that's the only way that we're going to grow. Something along those lines. And I just thought it was poignant.
I think you skipped a little bit in the explanation.
Sure.
From my reading, what actually happened is that the organizers of the event made a statement that they've decided to cancel the event as a time for self-reflection.
Yes.
And then several people who had resigned from the event went public.
Yes. That is a more detailed list of the events, and I think I think you're absolutely right to include that, because that does shed a little more light on Eric Lang's statement, which I think is particularly.
I'm curious about this as well, from another aspect of just not to take away from that. Obviously, that's extremely important, but I'm shocked that there are any kind of conventions happening. What with the virus? I mean, what was it going to be?
Online
Had
convention.
they done it?
Online. Sorry, Jake.
I
should have
see.
I should have
I was
stressed
sitting
that.
here thinking like these people are insane if they're going to go.
No, they canceled the live convention quite a while ago, but they were planning a rather large online convention to take its place.
That makes so much more sense.
And now that has been canceled as well. And I just want to say to everyone out there, not everyone that listens to this podcast is in our Facebook group. In our Facebook group, we made a very prominent statement that Black Lives Matter, and we went into some detail as to why that was. And we said, if you feel uncomfortable about this, please unfriend us and leave. And actually, we got at least one response that somebody did. That response, however, wasn't, I don't believe that Black Lives Matter. It was, I believe Black Lives Matter very much, but I don't like any group, and I don't want to be a part of any group that traffics in exclusion like that. And we respected that very much, but we also said that at this time, we think that this is the right statement for us. We have two of our Game Brain members are black, and they have talked eloquently about how that has impacted their lives in this hobby, and about how we as a society, it is so unbelievably overdue for us to do better, and so we need to. So we just want to say flat out that we support Black Lives Matter, and we are very, very hopeful about the time that we are going through, that through this tumult, that something better will come from it, and we very much hope so.
Well said.
Should we move on to our next item?
Let's do it.
We got two quick ones here. There's a Disney Jungle Cruise game that is coming out right now. It is by Prospero Hall. Prospero Hall did Jaws. That was our first entree into them. Then they did Top Gun. Then they did The Shining. Then they did
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, exactly. Now they've done Jungle Cruise, and they also have something in stores right now, which is Wonder Woman: Challenge of the Amazons. And I just have to sort of applaud Prospero Hall. They have found a little niche. Now, I look at the Jungle Cruise game, and it is beautifully produced, just like Jaws is beautifully produced. These are well-done games. Their graphic design is probably some of the best in the industry. They're just they seem to be able to make games at a price point, so it's not gaudy, right? But every little piece, all the little artwork that's on the cardboard counters and things like that is just wonderfully thought out to convey that world and that setting and to put you into that place.
The boats are amazing.
Aren't they?
I think that's my favorite bit. They look so good.
Right? And
the whole thing is great. I 100% agree. And that's a big thing for me. So, I like it.
Yeah. Now, it is a very simple race game. It has a good amount of luck in it. So in comparison to Jaws, which I think actually is surprisingly solid as a game, and it's a super stripped down, super back to basics, hidden movement deduction game, and I think it's great as far as that goes. I think Top Gun's. Go ahead.
Trey must hate it with the dice, right? I'm assuming.
Trey doesn't hate that game at all. Trey and I, when we came back from BGG Con, we were talking and we were like, so what was the surprise of the con? And we both looked at each other and 1, 2, 3, Jaws. We both said Jaws immediately. It was like we were like, I couldn't believe how good that thing was. It's available in Target. It's this tiny little box. It's branded content, which never turns out well, and it was a joy. Top Gun is a joy. The air combat is super rudimentary, but it's fun. It works. It makes sense. These guys have really found a way to create. This to me isn't really hobby games. What they're doing. What they're doing is they're taking aspects from hobby games and they're bringing them into mass market games. And if your kid, Jake, as he grows up, if instead of having to play, Sorry or Candyland or these sorts of games, if instead he has a whole list of Prospero Hall games that are still basic. They're still mass market games. They're not deeply involved. They're not deeply complex, but they have just that little extra bit of thought that went into the design. That's a big.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to possibly bring future people into the hobby, and even if they don't, just to elevate the level of gameplay in general.
For me,
That's great. I mean, it says age 8 and up, so he's not that far off.
Right, he's close. Yeah.
For me, on first impression, this kind of misses the boat because
Boom!
it's missing the humor. You know, the ride for me is about the jokes and being hit in the face with blast from an elephant's trunk.
Sure.
And I don't see jokes here. I see jeopardy. I see shifting around little cardboard chips in the boat to lose cargo rather than passengers. I don't see hits of humor.
Yeah.
Well, if you want, when we play it, I can just do a spit take in your face.
Just as long as you do it when I'm not expecting it.
Okay, you got it.
I mean, it says on the front cover, it says Jungle Cruise Adventure Game, a voyage of mystery and misfortune. The word misfortune is interesting. That does to me say a little tongue in cheek. And by the way, I know of people, we live in Southern California, so we have run into people that at one point or another were performers at Disneyland. And
They improvise those jokes.
they develop them. They develop their shtick. They don't improvise really because they do their thing, but they have their thing. But the get of the place, like the job you want, is you want to be the Jungle Cruise narrator. You want to be the person, the guide, because that is the, you know, that's the big stage, right? That is the most performative role probably in the entire theme park.
And they see your face.
That's how you pick up the hot chicks.
Yes. Well, no, the hot chicks is the Jack Sparrows. There's
right.
I don't know where it was. It was on the internet, but you have to check it out. There was a story written by a guy that was a Jack Sparrow at Disneyland or Disney World, writing about what a surreal existence it was, that there would be these middle-aged women that would get to the park, they'd be the first ones in the park, and they'd be the first ones on the Jack Sparrow line. They would get out of the line, go to the back of the line, and come through again, and they would do that 5, 6, 7 times in the day, just so Jack Sparrow, or this Jack Sparrow, would flirt with them, would have fun with them. They were sort of living vicariously through that moment. It's fascinating, the amount of little microcosms and little micro communities that spring up in these kinds of theme parks in particular are astonishing.
And there are also people who come back for Peter Pan.
Is that right?
No, that was
Dimitri
just a
says
very
no.
bad joke.
Dimitri says
Definitely
no.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so the production value of Disney Jungle Cruise Adventure Game looks amazing. Can't speak to the gameplay, don't know, but if you have kids that are around 8 years old or so, I would seriously take a peek at this. It's kind of gorgeous, and I suspect that it will have humor in it. But Dimitri may be right. There is nothing in the outward presentation that says for sure that it will capture any of that. But I hope very much that it does. The other game, as we said, is Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazon. That is available right now at Target. $35. I think they price these things pretty well too. I think they find a price point that isn't punitive. Like I said, they keep the costs relatively low. They have a high value of art for a relatively low cost because they're not adding a lot of miniatures or a lot of pieces that would jack the price up.
The minis look good though. I mean, they're cool little bronze statues. I think they're pretty sweet.
Aren't they? Yeah, I think they're pretty good.
I mean, I don't know. They look all right. I can't see what they really look like. I don't know if it's plastic. I'm assuming it is, but they look pretty cool.
I think so. Yeah, I do. Let's move on. Next up is a game called Monumental. Monumental is by designer Matthew Dunstan, and it's coming out this year, and it's a weird one. All right. So one of the first things you see a tray full of miniatures, and I mean full of miniatures, tons and tons and tons of them. And then we find out that in Monumental, you're going to control a civilization that's going to evolve. You've got a grid of 3x3 cards that can be activated to gather resources like science, military, production, culture, gold. And when you activate them, you trigger several actions. So when I think about that, it's like this is a card drafting game. That's what this is. This is not a miniatures game. There is a miniature aspect. There is battle between different civilizations and stuff like that. But this is actually a fairly simple card drafting game with all of these other bits around it. Like it's.
You know what
I gotta say, the miniatures look pretty dope. I'm super into it.
Oh yeah.
Just based on what I'm seeing, yeah, I'm looking through these pictures and I don't know. I'm immediately drawn in as a visual stimulant. They got me.
Cool.
This reminds me of Tapestry without the achievement tracks. Tapestry also has a bunch of hexagons in the middle with armies or civilizations that could advance against each other. Tapestry also has cards with achievements and resources. And this seems to be a lot like that, but eliminating the advancement tracks where you receive points by advancing your technologies.
Gotcha. You lost me at Tapestry, but listen. Here's the thing. It has all these miniatures. It has all this stuff, and then you look at the details of it, and it's 1 to 4 players, 90 to 120 minutes. So short for that type of game. And
But it's really 3 hours, Tom.
I don't believe it is. My understanding is that it is not. That it plays pretty much in.
That would be unusual because most games
Yes.
deliberately underestimate the playing times.
Almost all of them do. But Tom Vassell was talking about this game, and he said, yeah, it doesn't play that far off of its estimated time, and the weight is only 2.69. So. This may be one of those.
I think I would love this one. I think this one is one in my wheelhouse for sure.
Tell me how you know that. Other than
I
the
can tell you
miniatures.
exactly how I know that. First of all, I happen to love miniatures. I think it draws me in. I like the aspect of that a lot. I like that. I like the board and the pieces that put together and the randomness of that. I like that a lot. I don't know. It's reminding me of things that I've played that I've liked, and there's something about that. It's a little world right in front of you, and it's not so abstract in your mind.
Okay,
so you
tangibility.
you feel like the
Tangibility,
civilization.
exactly.
You feel like the civilization is actually in your eyes, and you can see it happening.
Yeah. Yes, and you can pick up your character and move him around, him or her, and this one is speaking to me. I mean, of course, I haven't played it, obviously, but
let's put a pin in that because that is going to be something that we're going to want to come back to in our discussion of how to know a game is not for you. Because you're stating
fair.
very clearly what makes a game for you, so that this is a good counterpoint. So let's keep that in mind. My take on Monumental is that I think it might be a little bit of a bait and switch. It looks like a bigger, heavier, meatier game than it may actually be. That it may actually be a Euro that is masquerading as a big basher, and not even a heavy Euro, sort of a very medium weight Euro. We will see. We will see what it ends up being.
And that is something I will be talking about.
Oh, look at that. Next up, we have a game that is due to come out in 2021 called The Night Cage. Designer is Christopher Ryan Chan, Chris McMahon, and Roswell Saunders. Put out by Smirk and Laughter Games.
This is where you put a bunch of medieval knights into a cage and they fight it out between them.
NIGHT, not KNIGHT. Eventually, we're going to evolve the language out of that little mistake. But the Night Cage is, first of all, the box cover is astonishing. It is one of the more arresting.
Pretty spooky.
Isn't that great?
It's pretty spooky. I immediately, no thanks.
It is a black box cover with a hand holding up a candle that is kind of dripping down over the hand. And the
like
light,
a lot, and ominously.
yes, and the light from that candle is barely extending out far enough to just barely illuminate the words "The Night Cage." So very arresting.
And there's like a bunch of scary hands coming just out of the shadows at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is spooky.
Yeah.
It's good art.
So this is a cooperative horror-themed tile placement game where 1 to 5 people are lost souls trapped within an unnatural labyrinth of eternal darkness. To win,
This
players
is like
must...
how I feel right now in my life, basically.
Yeah,
Join the club.
we're gonna rename the game 2020. The game is called 2020.
Yep.
It is about trying to escape a labyrinth of eternal darkness. To win, players must
Holding
collect
my knees in close to my chest in the darkness, just scared.
To win, players must each collect a key, find a gate, and escape as a group. So we can't theme it as 2020 because there is no escape.
And there is no group.
Yeah.
It's just us alone.
Oh, Lord. That's dark, Dimitri.
What I find interesting about this game is...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. What I find interesting about this game is how theme indicates gameplay. In this case, everybody has a flickering candle. And that is denoted by wherever your character moves, you can only see the tiles, the tile that's behind you, the tile that's to your left, to your right, and in front of you. Those are the only ones you can see. And after you move, let's suppose you move forward then. The tile that was behind you is discarded from the game. And now you can only see that tile that was right in front of you that you just moved onto, the one in front of that, and the one on the left and the one on the right. If you were to back up, a new tile is drawn. The maze is eternally shifting. So there is no gradual revelation of the map. The map is never knowable and is always in flux.
That's cool.
Now, I don't know if that's going to make a great game, right? I mean, ideally, I want to be gaining information and I want to be, gaining mastery over the course of a game. That those are two things that tend to be very pleasing as a game experience. But thematically, boy, oh boy, does that hit really hard, right?
Yeah,
Tom,
and the tile holder is like a candle. It gets smaller and smaller, it looks like.
Yep.
Tom,
So that
Jake,
ties in nicely.
have you ever seen a horror movie called The Cube?
I love Cube. It's just called Cube. Yes.
Oh, Cube.
Yes.
Jake, have you seen it?
No, I have not. I stay away from horror movies on purpose.
It's not really a horror movie. It's really sort of a paranoid sci-fi thriller. It's got a little bit of a horror element. It is a genius design of ultra low budget filmmaking. Like they made such a great film on such a low budget. Dimitri, tell them the gimmick.
Yeah, Cube is a bunch of cubes that are connected in space, and you go from one
Not in space. On Earth, but yes.
in volume.
Yeah, a bunch of people wake up and they have no idea how they got here, but they're in this high-tech cube with walls and nothing else in it.
And when they move from adjacent cube to adjacent cube, each cube has a special threat.
They're identical except for the color of the walls, which is great great from a production standpoint, right? Because hey, change the gels and we're good.
Yeah, right.
Some of them are trapped, right, Dimitri?
Yeah. And it's a maze. And this game reminded me of Cube. Cube came out before escape rooms became popular. And I feel escape rooms were very much influenced by Cube.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This game, I really wanted to be a Cube game the way that Jaws is a Jaws game.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you could retheme this as Cube and go really far. But the idea of playing with darkness, I think, is kind of interesting. There was a kids game, Der Nick de Magier. It means the Night of the Magician. And it's this German game, and the notion is this: there are all of these dark blue discs, and then there are a few discs, and they're all in kind of a tray, as it were. And then there are a few discs that have markings on them, and those markings you put under a light for a half an hour or so. What they're doing is they're charging up, and they glow. So, and the entire game is played in the dark, and essentially the way it is you have a pusher. And when it is your turn to go, you are trying to get your symbol, which is glowing out at you in this pitch black room, to go a certain way and to a certain place. But the only way you do that is by pushing on the edges of this thing. And so all of these circular black, dark blue discs that you can no longer see are creating unusual combinations and movements. And you can't always 100% predict the way things are going to move. Listen, it's a very simple game. It's kind of a dexterity game, kind of a kid's game, a little bit of a puzzle game. But the experience of playing that with my kids, turning the lights out and seeing that thing glow, and then just the thematic of it, I really remember loving that. And if this, this is the kind of game that if it's any good, I would consider playing when, couples night, couples come over and something like that. We just turn the lights out. We light a few candles.
Light some candles.
Yeah. And just try and make it a little bit of an experience. Maybe.
Just see where the night goes. You don't know.
Couples night, yes.
I don't know.
I think Jake and I went to the same place there.
We did, but that's because we're very the same that way.
Next up, we have a return. 7 years ago was the last time there was a Charles S. Roberts Award. Charles S. Roberts was the founder of Avalon Hill. Avalon Hill was, before Eurogames, was the one-stop shop for all hobby games. Basically, almost every great game that existed before Settlers of Catan came into existence was dominated by one company, and that is Avalon Hill. They did Civilization, they did Advanced Civilization, they did Acquire, they did Diplomacy, they did Kremlin, they did Junta. No, they didn't do Junta, but they did tons and tons of amazing games from that era, including tons and tons of war games, because back then, hobby games were 80-90% war games. And so this is an award that goes all the way back to the very first Origins. The gaming convention that we just said was the online version of was canceled this year. Origins started in 1975, and this gaming award goes all the way back to them. But they canceled it recently. Well, guess what? It is up again. They're starting it up again, and you can vote on their website. So just Google Charles S. Roberts Awards, and why not vote? Here's the thing. The focus is war games. So if you are not a grognard, you might not have any interest in this. If you are a grognard, by all means go. Make your voice heard. It's going to be important. But guess what? Not all of these are strictly war games. These are... a lot of these games could be war game adjacent. So the Blood Rages of the world and things like that could very much count in those categories. And wargaming has bisected. There are people that are still playing hardcore war games just the way they did, 20, 30 years ago. But there has been a Euroization of a certain aspect of war games that is ongoing. And we might want to get in there and make a vote for some things if there are things that are appropriate for those kinds of awards. I can think of some titles that I would love to put up. Yeah, the non-gamer and the casual gamer, nothing to say about that. Fine.
Yeah, it's just like, all right.
No.
I enjoy how one of the awards is for a great game of the last 5 years. And it's intended to recognize not the current hotness necessarily, but something that is anticipated to have lasting value and a lasting effect.
Yeah. Well, it's also that this award hasn't existed for 7 years, so they're like, well, it'd be horrible if we didn't acknowledge the fact that for all of these years we didn't even have anything, and all those games are just out of luck. But yeah, I'm glad that that's there too. That's really the award that I'm most interested in voting on.
Me too.
Yeah, that sounds great. On Kickstarter news, there is a game called Fire Tower. It actually came out in 2018, and they have done a reprint and a Rising Flames expansion on Kickstarter. It had a $8,000 goal. Come on, really? You really were expecting only to make $8,000? It has raised $93 million, and it has this big banner that says "Funded in 6 minutes." I'm really getting annoyed by this.
93 million?
No, 93,000.
Okay.
Did I say million?
You did say million. The kind of
$93,000. Look, I'm glad that Sam Bryant and Gwen Rule have have made it with this. I'm glad that they're getting all of that money. I do get a little annoyed when I see artificially low goals on Kickstarter for the purposes of being able to put a banner saying funded in 6 minutes, 5 minutes. That said, I also get it. You're an independent publisher, and you have got to market the heck out of this thing. And if the rules say you can do that, do that. That's fine. As far as Fire Tower,
you can't hate the player. You can only hate the game, right? I mean, they're working.
Who said that, Jake?
Who said that? I just said that.
You said
I
that.
coined that phrase just now.
All right, fine.
I think Trump said that.
No, I think it was a police chief in Florida. Fire Tower is about forest fires. You are going to play up to 4 people can play, and you are manning a fire watch tower, watching these fires spread. You are drawing cards that you will be able to use to fight that fire. So you're going to try to, douse it with water, or sometimes there's going to be wind change.
Yikes.
There will be occasionally some really, really bad cards like Firestorm, which suddenly the fire just rages out of control. And it's not just that you're trying to put out the fire collectively, you're actually trying to drive the fire toward the other player's towers. So,
that's not so bad then.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. It's kind of interesting. I've heard good things. I heard that it's a pretty fun game. It's won some awards. It looks good. I think the look of it is quite pleasing. Actually, I think it's a really decent design.
Interesting.
The only thing I want to say about it is that this is a game that plays in about a half an hour. That's it. It's a filler game. It's a light game that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and you're done. You're out of there. It shouldn't take longer than that. So to charge $42 for the base game plus $19 for the expansion, I don't know. It feels, I look at Prospero Hall and I look at Jungle Cruise at $32 now. They're doing a mass market thing. I totally get that that's different. I totally know that independent publishers, their prices are much higher because they're not getting volume discounts and so on and so forth. And they don't have cozy relationships with various producers and all that sort of stuff. That said, I have seen indie games that are priced a lot better than this, and essentially $60 for a filler game just doesn't feel quite right to me.
Fire Tower has those exquisitely carved and painted flames in 3D that you can play with.
I don't know. They just look like little bits of plastic to me. I don't want to ever put another person's hard work down, but
are you talking
just
about the
judging
Hawks?
this? I'm just looking at this thing,
I
and
thought they were
I'm
like
just
little
immediately not
flames
into it.
that
Dimitri thought that they were flames. No, the flames are the crystal cube things.
I like the crystal cube.
I think they look great. I think they're great. And by the way, those were the original. Those were the original. No, there are hawks in this one, and there are custom hawk meeples. And yes, they're red, so they look like fire. So I get the confusion.
Looks like something that would go at the bottom of a fish tank.
Oh, the little cubes.
The fire, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just,
it kind of is. It kind of is. Guys, do you want to hear the game that I am most excited about in 2020?
yes, so much so.
The game that I am most excited about in 2020, it doesn't even have, there's not even a single piece of artwork on its Board Game Geek page, but there was just a post by somebody who worked with the designer, and the designer is the one, the only Martin Wallace. Martin Wallace is deep into designing Anno 1800. Now, the Anno series, there were previous board games of that. And then they crossed over to video games. And the video games, Jennifer is a huge fan of Anno 1800. She says it is this vast Euro game that's a PC-only video game that is wonders. And you can play it for days, weeks, months, and not get to the end of what you can do. There are tech trees and there are trading, and it's astonishingly well put together and well designed and great Euro mechanics. Well, they chose Martin Wallace now to design the board game version of it. And a guy named Stephen Hearn, who worked with Martin a little bit. I think he essentially was the video game consultant now that Martin is living in Australia. and the game company that makes the video game didn't have anybody down there, so he's sort of their representative to just talk to Martin about the design decisions that went into the video game so that he can adapt it right. And he has been ranting about how amazing Martin's work has been, saying that if you like Brass, if you like Feast for Odin, this is a game that feels like those games. This is one of those games that he said some of the mechanics that Martin Wallace has come up with to bridge the gap between video game and board game, he said, are things that are so astonishing to him that we may be seeing repetition of that mechanism in lots and lots of other products. Now, listen, this is one voice in the wilderness, but this gives me a lot of hope because I've heard great things about 1800 Anno, and I would love, love, love to have a chance to play it. But guess what? I'm on a Mac, and it's not available on a Mac, and it's not available on a console. So it's one of these great games that I just don't really have access to. And if Martin Wallace is going to bring me his version of that, I'm all in, guys. I'm all in.
I just read War and Peace with Maddie. That's from that same time period. It takes place in 1805 to 1812, 14.
There you go. How about that? Yeah. This game is one of those things where you start off with all of these project cards. And the project cards are things you want to accomplish in the game, and that also is the clock of the game. It's how you're going to win the game, but it's also the clock of the game because the first person to be out of these project cards ends the game. And some of these look at the beginning of the game to be impossible. Like, oh my God, this thing needs 5 different resources, and 3 of those resources can't even be created until 8 other different resources need to have been created first. Like, you can't make a watch until you make this, and you can't make this until you've made that, and so on and so forth. And so each player is slowly building up their tech trees, as it were. And there is trading in the game. So when somebody creates the next thing and you need that thing, you trade for it, you get it, and you leapfrog that to make the next thing in order. And it sounds so much up my wheelhouse. Do you know what it sounds like it's really for, though, more than anybody? Elder. Elder talks about how, it's like I want a resource management game, and if it doesn't have at least 17 resources, I'm not interested.
40 or yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Elder is going to go crazy for this game when it comes out, and I really can't wait.
I think that's a great
I'm like
insight.
The complete other end of the spectrum for that one. I'm firmly representing the guy way out on the other end of that line, being like, I can't even. The same reason I wouldn't play like Red Dead Redemption, the new one where you have to do 10 hours of work just to brush your horse. You know what I mean? Like, it's too much.
I totally get that. And it may be, but I will say
for me, too much. Maybe. Not in general. I'm sure it's brilliant.
Or maybe not. Because Martin,
or maybe not. Yeah. Right.
Well, no, because Martin Wallace doesn't make inaccessible games. He makes punishing games. He makes difficult games, but he doesn't make inaccessible games. His games all come in at a reasonable length of time. They don't take like crazy long to play, and the explanation of the game, it's not Vital Lacerda. It's not my brain is broken before I even get to start playing it. I love Vital Lacerda. Absolutely adore him, as you probably heard last week, but his games are on the Baroque side. Martin Wallace's are not. Martin Wallace designs engines that you can grok, that you can get, and that you can and that you can apply. And it's in the application of those where things start to get a little tricky. So maybe it's not going to be quite as bad for you as you think. That said,
all right.
Jake, I can't remember playing a Martin Wallace game with you. There's probably a reason there. It might not be your bag. We'll see.
It's probably not, but I'm always down to try something new. So,
dude, I'm going to come up with the Martin Wallace game for you. I'm not sure what it is.
Jake,
yet.
You've never played Age of Steam, the railroad game?
I know I've obviously heard everyone talk about it, but to be fair, I can't remember if I have or not.
I don't think he ever has. I think he's played an 18XX, but
I may not have.
But I don't think he's played that. Last in the news, a bit of good news from our community's standpoint anyway. The indie video game community has done a little something for Black Lives Matter. Itch.io, which is a great organization for indie video game designers, has put together a bundle for racial justice and equality. which is amazing. If you go to itch.io, you will find it. They are advertising it heavily. You can buy 1,600 different items for just $5. That's normally over $9,000. You're saving 99%. Of course, it is not just pay $5. It's contribute however much you like. You must contribute at least $5. The average contribution right now is over $10, and there have been 580,000 contributors. They were going for $5 million. They thought it was ambitious. They've already raised over $6 million, every penny of which is going to go in a 50-50 split to, let me see, the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund and the Community Bail Fund, which is really, really important. It is the organization that is bailing protesters out, and when there are not protests going on, is making sure that people who should not be spending nights in jail do not spend nights in jail. It's a fantastic.
Amazing. That's so amazing.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
It really is. It's like giving me goosebumps a little bit. It's really awesome.
My friend who is a rock star in the indie video game community, Tracy Fullerton, who Dimitri knows,
Yes.
Her game Walden is there. I'm just going to plug that right here. Walden, like I would pay $10 just for Walden. Walden is astonishing. It is a game that is based on Henry David Thoreau's On Walden Pond, and it is just a walking simulator, experiential game that teaches you the principles of transcendentalism. It has won so many awards. Tracy has to buy a new house to build a place to put all the awards that she has won for this game. It is absolutely amazing. There are tons and tons of amazing games. You're getting how many games? Oh my God, it's unbelievable. 1,600 different indie games. Man, if you are sitting at home and you're wondering what to do next, get on this bundle, get these games, start just checking them out. Check out one or two a day, and you are going to find gems. You're going to find things that you absolutely love and adore. I highly recommend that you do that.
I'm just looking at 100% agreeing. I'm just looking after you said that at some of the screen grabs from Walden, and like I want to play it immediately.
Oh, it's incredible. It's
it
incredible.
Looks bananas amazing.
She is a genius, and she's doing amazing things. She is one of the head honchos at the USC School for Video Game Design. She runs the games program there, or one of the people that runs the games program there, and she is amazing.
Yeah, I'm doing this.
It's really cool. I think Trey was involved there for a little bit. I think when he got his Reagan Library.
Yeah, Trey
was through there.
Yeah, Trey went and talked with them, and Trey had them come. I actually participated in that particular event where the people from the game school came over and did Trey's Situation Room experience at the Reagan Library, and it was really great fun meeting all of them and seeing how they interacted with a live action video game essentially, and the way their brains worked. It was fantastic. It was a really great experience.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.